Good evening and welcome to Boston City News. I'm Terry Stackhouse.
And I'm Jordan Moncada. Here's what's making news tonight. Police are still searching tonight for a suspect involved in Friday's robbery of a Saugus bank and the ensuing police chase that left one man dead. The robbery happened at Saugus Bank on Linfells Parkway around 4 p.m. on Friday. The suspects allegedly stormed into the bank wearing body armor and left with thousands of dollars in cash. They then carjacked two vehicles and led police on a wild chase across two towns that ended with a shootout on Broadway Street in Malden. 35-year-old William Casalius on East Boston was shot and killed inside a stolen silver sedan, while two other suspects were later arrested in a nearby apartment complex. Police urge anyone with information to contact authorities.
Tonight, the race for the Republican nomination for president remains as cloudy as ever.
Why would we put someone up who is uniquely, pick any other Republican in the country? He is the worst Republican in the country.
After a big win in Louisiana, Rick Santorum has some harsh words about Mitt Romney's chances against the incumbent President Barack Obama. Santorum made the statement while campaigning in Wisconsin, one of the next free primaries. They will all be held on April 3rd. For more on Santorum's win in the Bayou State and a look forward to Maryland, D.C., and Wisconsin, we now turn to Boston City News' very own political expert, Ryan Fleiter. Ryan, Rick Santorum told the New York Times reporter this week that he would accept an invitation to be the vice presidential candidate. What do you think of this? What does this make going into the elections next Tuesday?
That's right, Terry. That's huge news coming from Rick Santorum's camp. It's a little ironic, though, that Rick Santorum said that Mitt Romney was the worst Republican in the country, as polls so far show that if Romney was to go up against Barack Obama, he'd have a better chance beating him than Santorum. But if Santorum really wants to be a vice presidential candidate and Romney's the nominee, he better start playing a little bit nicer if he really wants that position.
Santorum's win in Maryland. Do you think that this is going to help him out in the long run, that he can actually compete?
I mean, if he can compete, if he can beat Romney, that's going to be huge. Santorum needs a little bit of a push. You're going to say, okay, Santorum won in Louisiana. That gives him a little bit of momentum, but it really doesn't. The South is socially conservative. That's where Santorum is going to do his best. You go up to the northern states, you go to Wisconsin, which is next Tuesday, he's not going to fare as well. Romney right now in polls has the lead in Wisconsin as well as Maryland and D.C.
And as you mentioned, Newt Gingrich, he gathers, on average about a third of the vote in some of these southern primaries. But as we head north, if he were to drop out of the race at this point, does that help out Santorum?
I honestly don't see Gingrich dropping out of the race just yet, but if he does, that would absolutely help Santorum in the long run. I actually believe that some of those votes would go to Romney, but most of them would go to Santorum. Gingrich has proven himself as a socially conservative candidate. All those social conservatives go over to Santorum. Santorum gets a little bit of a boost there. But when it comes down to it, come June, at the end of the primary season, you're going to see Romney, most likely, as the GOP nominee.
Ryan Fleiter, live tonight in Boston. Thank you very much. For more on Boston City's news coverage of our political contest coming up here, check out www.bostoncitynews.org.
The families of last year's Mattapan shooting victims are outraged tonight. The jury could not come to a decision in the trail of two men charged with the murders of 3 adults and a toddler. Despite the testimony of an eyewitness, Dwayne Moore and Edward Washington were acquitted. And as you can see in this courtroom video, the families of the loved ones were not happy with the decision.
As to offense 003, murder, first degree, as to victim, Lavon Washam Garrison, is a defendant, Edward Washington, not guilty, guilty of murder first degree, guilty of murder in the second degree. Not guilty. So say you, Mr. Foreman. So say all members of the jury.
Crowds gathered outside the courthouse were livid, screaming and cursing at reporters. Mayor Thomas Menino said in a written statement, "It is hard to accept decisions like the one handed down today. I have no fear that the efforts of our Boston police detectives and the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office will be deterred in their search for the justice of these families. The case against Moore and Washington for the remaining charges of armed robbery and home invasion is set to start in the coming weeks."
The Army Staff Sergeant accused of murdering 16 Afghan citizens, 9 of them children, was officially charged with premeditated murder today. If convicted, Robert Bales could face the death penalty or life in prison. The The soldier's lawyer says that Bales does not remember the event and may have suffered a brain injury in one of his 3 previous tours. Bales is a father of 2 and quit his job as a stockbroker to join the military after 9/11. Experts are predicting that the legal proceedings could last years, as Bales has to be court-martialed before that he can be tried.
A female college student was sexually assaulted while walking near the Esplanade late Saturday night. The student was not hurt and was able to flee from her alleged attacker on foot. Police are still looking for the suspect, who is described as a black male between 6 feet and 6 feet 4 inches. Police say that there was no immediate evidence to suggest that the attack was related to the 3 unsolved attacks on the Esplanade in 2007. In the past few months, many Boston colleges have begun offering self-defense classes. Boston City News' Dominique Banez has more on what students can do to protect themselves.
If you don't feel safe in the city, you aren't alone. In Boston, 1 in 22 people are in danger of violent crime. Self-defense is one way to protect yourself.
The most important thing as far as self-defense goes is to take what people already know and what they already do and see how that applies to personal safety.
I've learned to use my own instincts to defend myself and not to go against like actual moves, but to like learn what I would just instinctually do and work with that to protect myself.
Stephanie Nelson is a self-defense student at Not Me. Not Me is a nonprofit in Arlington, and it focuses on simple defense tactics.
I feel a little bit more confident and comfortable in myself, where I'm less of a victim than I might have before I had taken these classes.
Classes like these at Not Me focus on educating at-risk populations like women. However, RAD instructor Scott Baisley says that is no longer the case.
I feel that learning self-defense and learning to protect yourself is vital for both genders. You know, because as we all know, crime is not gender specific.
There is a high demand for self-defense courses. That's why college campuses in Boston are now offering free RAD classes for everyone. For Boston City News, I'm Dominique Banez.